today we turn our focus to a powerful new documentary that shifts the lens from tragedy to resilience, from headlines to human strength. We're joined by the creative forces behind Mothers of Chibok. This film follows 4 mothers in Chibok who, in the years after the 2014 abduction, rebuilt their lives through farming, enterprise, and an unshakable commitment to educating their children. It is a story not defined by loss, but by leadership, dignity, and forward motion. For Kachi Benson, the documentary continues a body of work that centers on underrepresented voices with honesty and care. And for Silva, stepping into the role of executive producer marks a new chapter of cultural stewardship, using storytelling not just as art, but as civic engagement and national memory. Let's welcome the director of Mothers of Chibok and executive producer, Silva and Kachi Benson. Welcome to the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
I know you've been doing media rounds, so this has been going on for a while. Thank you so much for making it on Arise 360 today. And I want to start with you, because ladies first. I know you're the director, but you got this. Just seeing that trailer, very, very, very inspiring. I mean, I don't think there's anybody, except you've been living under a rock, that doesn't know the story of what happened in Chibok back in 2014. I want to know, at what point did you see this and think, I want to be part of this? And what was the reason for you making that decision?
At what point? When I saw, when he called me, and himself and Mr. Femi Odugbemi, they both called me and said, we want you to see something, And I sat down and I watched it right through, and I thought, wow. The quality of work was so incredible. But also I loved the angle of storytelling, in the sense that as a director, Kachi was like a fly on the wall. He was like a fly on the wall, and he was letting the women tell their story, which is what is unusual. Like you rightly said in your intro, it was the headlines and all that. But you follow these women, and their story unfolds. And as their story unfolds, you are appreciative of their gentle dignity and resilience. Yes.
Wonderful. Joel, we'll come to you so you don't feel left out at the end over there. You are the fantastic director behind this documentary. Now, we know back in 2014 when this happened, this was a situation that made global headlines. We had the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. So many people all around the world were talking about this. How does the Women of Chibok, this documentary, how does it shift the narrative just from numbers and headlines to actually telling real stories? And what was it like even when you first met the women you followed?
Right. I think the first time I met them was in 2014, when I made the first film, Daughters of Chibok. And that was a virtual reality experience that we designed. And the idea of using that technology was to sort of immerse viewers in this world that before then was like this place you hear of but never been to. And we wanted to bring it really close. It served its purpose at the time. But, I say all the time that, Daughters of Chibok was in some ways like a knee-jerk reaction to what I was confronted with, in the first instance, the grief and the pain of a mother who's waiting for her daughter. But then I started to spend more time with the women and realized that there's more to them than just the grief. We've sort of all knowingly or unknowingly reduced Chibok and the women and the people of Chibok to this headline. But spending more time with them, you realize that, they're beautiful, they're funny, they're humorous, they have dignity, they have pride, and they are still very quietly defiant. And that's a side to the story that we haven't heard yet. And so I decided to go back in 2021 and spent about 2.5, 3 years making another film. But this time to portray them, show the world the complete picture.
Yeah.
Not this, mono-dimensional view, but like a multi-dimensional perspective of who the women are. Their dignity, their strength, their courage, And of course, you know, you can't escape the tragedy of what happened, but it's also about how they're moving forward. You understand what I mean? And really turning that tragedy into like an opportunity for resilience. Yeah.
There was something that, and I'm going to throw away my professional. I want Auntie Joke, please. Because we're not supposed to. But yeah, we're Nigerian, so I'm going to. You said something, you know, and it really struck me. You said, you know, what stood out for you was their silent dignity, how they were able to continue even without anybody looking. In your view, why you've spoken about how society forgets these women. Why do you think that collective memory fails mothers in moments of national tragedy? Because there was that attention there, but that attention is now diverted, even though there was still so much going on. Why do you think that happens in a country like Nigeria?
I think that happens in a country of anywhere because there's always news. There's always something there's always something else, you know, that catches people's attention, that people are moving to. So it happens anywhere. I do remember, I can't remember which publication it was that kept counting the days, you know, after the children went missing. So people try, but other things happen. And when those other things happen, they take the front burner. And so what is needed in any society are the people who will not forget. People like Kachi, who will not forget, who will say, okay, like he said, the knee-jerk reaction was Daughters of Chibok, and it was good that he did Daughters of Chibok. But once he did Daughters of Chibok, in doing Daughters of Chibok was the observation of the women. Now, another person would have said, okay, I've done my bit and I'm moving on, you know. But he was able to say, I really want to understand what the journey has been like, you know. And in doing that, it's opened up other things. It's opened you up to understanding how these women have been resilient, how they have fought back. They have said, okay, you've taken one child or you've taken two children, because some people, it wasn't only one child that was abducted. You've taken my children, but the ones that are still left with me, that are still under my care, I will make sure they get an education, because life cannot get better if you are not educated. And so that has been their silent resistance.
All right, if I can come in quickly, I want to follow up on that with Kachi. Following the mothers over a farming season seemed like a very deliberate narrative choice. What does agriculture symbolize for you in the context of resilience and survival? And talk to me about the Mothers of Chibok initiative as how it's come out of this production process.
Right. So when we talk about the women's resilience and defiance and their strength, for me, it's really how they've continued to insist on educating their kids. And part of, you know, the research, and when you stay close to these women, you start to ask yourself, okay, so how do you pull this off? How do you do this? And it's through farming. So the main thing that they farm is groundnuts. That's the main crop, and everybody farms groundnuts. Everybody's a farmer, all the women. And so they take it, they farm it, they harvest it, they sell it, they pay school fees. And so for me, it was like, okay, this is how they fund education. Farming is what funds education in Chibok. And it felt very natural. I would just follow these women over the course of a farming cycle, from when they put the seeds in the ground to when the harvest comes out. And on the surface, you think it's a story about agriculture, but it's really a story about education, really, because that's the end product is not the harvest that is sold. It is what happens with the harvest. Obviously, in doing that, you realize that there are also quite a few challenges in the community. The harvest isn't great, and they have to deal with middlemen in the village who just pay them anything, but they're happy to collect it as long as it can pay a child's school fees. So we've been working with them in the last year, some of the women, to see how we can collaborate with them to improve farming practices and the results. And it's been incredible how over the last year, they've recorded over 100% increase in yield. In some cases, like 300%, 400%, 500%. In some individual cases, and now, anyone who tell about it, there's so much excitement about being involved in something like that. We're collaborating with them to see how we can further process their harvest into like finished goods, that people can touch and feel and taste. That's how you flip the narrative, I think. How you take a story of Chibok that everybody has associated with tragedy and say, out of this place, out of these ashes, it's now a story of resilience and recovery and moving forward.
I love that, out of the ashes.
I love that. Auntie Joke, I'll come to you now. Before I ask my question, is this the first documentary that you have been a part of?
Yes, as an executive producer, yes.
Wonderful. So we know you more as like, a veteran actress, a cultural figure, a woman of the people. We love that. But how would you say you approach this project differently from maybe the fictional roles you have played in the past? And would you say this documentary demanded anything from you emotionally?
It demanded a lot. We're just talking about that now, the kind of media rounds we've done. But on a serious note, it's also been it's been wonderful to meet with people who are, most of the time I'm bashing my head against a brick wall, when I'm trying to get support for other projects, all right? But you knock on a particular wall for anything when it's got to do with the mothers of Chibok, and they're like, oh, yes, okay, how many do you need? Oh, and you're like, okay. People are so giving. People are so empathetic about it, and I also believe the fact that the focus is not on the tragedy, because some people will even say to you that I'm not even coming to what I can't. What can I do? And we tell them no. It's beyond the tragedy. It's about the education. It's about their farming and the enterprise. So, and the beauty of it also, as as we were talking about, I'm president of Forum of Women in Film and TV and other screen media, and they have been so supportive as well, So maybe I shouldn't even have talked about anything. Because
I guess sometimes you don't know the story that you're waiting to see until you see it. And everyone that has come in contact with it has shown that it's been a pleasant surprise just seeing how people have stood up for the women, really. Not necessarily for the film, but for the women. For the women, right? Yes. And the film is just a conduit to show you, bring you into their world. It's a window into their world. But I think the support has been incredible. Just the fact that as a film is going into the cinemas, you understand, a documentary in the cinemas in Nigeria, it's like, okay.
Nigeria and Ghana.
And Ghana,
Why do you keep...
I'm sorry. Yes. But it was incredible because it was a shot in the dark. Let's just even try and see what's going to happen. And then they responded and said, yes, we're happy to program this. We think it's an important film and all of that. So, I hope that this awakens something in us. When you talked about collective memory, there are stories that shouldn't be swept under the carpet. I always say that the Chibok story, the final chapter hasn't been written yet. And so we owe it to ourselves to continue to remember, but remember them through the lens of dignity. Do you get what I mean? We can't continue to victimize these people or reduce that place and that story to just a headline. And that's all you know about them. Through this film, I think you get to know them a little bit better.
Definitely.
You get to know them a little bit better, and then there's also rebuilding. That's what I also like about it. Yes. Yeah,
100%. It's interesting that you say that. I was going to touch on the fact that we don't really see a lot of documentaries having a cinematic release. So I'm so glad that you're doing that, because it almost took Madu, which is a different documentary that you did, able to open their eyes and see that documentaries actually make a difference. But I want to ask both of you, how do you define, especially because you spent more time with the women, how do you define hope after spending so much time on a story that was born out of loss?
Hope is waking up every morning and looking at your child with love and bathing her or him and sending him or her off to school while you go to the farm to till the land and nurture the land and bring the harvest so you can pay school fees. And you do that every day, whilst you still remember that one is missing. Yeah. That's hope.
What about you, Auntie Jordan?
I totally agree with that. I think the only thing that I'll add is that even when the children are not in school, they are also part of the farming season. So they'll do their homework, but they'll join mommy on the farm. They will, and even the mommy is saying to them that, okay, if you see any stranger, run, that kind of thing. It's there, it's at the back of their mind, but they are still the nurturing and the passing on of the knowledge of the dignity in farming. In farming. I think the thing with loss is that it doesn't go away, but you learn to live with it. And it's how you learn to live with it and how they have learned to live with it. That is, part of what we're going to see in Mothers of Chibok. You will laugh,
Yes.
Yeah. You will laugh, really laugh.
That's really, with life, with happiness and sadness as well. It's just what goes around. And my last question to both of you as well. If the Mothers of Chibok were in this room today, what do you think they would want audiences to do, not just feel, when they watch this documentary?
I see you're responsible.
Let me go first so that you can round up. It would be rebuilding the community. Yeah. All right. One of the things I always say is that the perpetrators of this can never be allowed to win. And they do not win if you first of all find the people within the community who are resilient and they're continuing with with making sure that the community thrives. So what do they expect from us is how do we join them, not help them, join them in making the community thrive even beyond their expectations. Yes, that's reality. But his English is good.
No, I mean, I think you say it all, but I feel like if there's one thing that they would want from us, from Nigerians, I think is just to keep faith with them, and keep hope with them. Sometimes when you're alone, it's harder to be hopeful, but when you have people. When you know that, okay, you've got people around you who believe in the same thing that you believe, who want the same thing for you that you want for yourself, the burden feels a bit lighter. So I think that's something that they want. They would say, let's continue to believe and hope that every last girl will return. But in the meantime, we keep working.
Keep working. So talk to me about the cinematic release. When is it coming out? I know that there's a special event planned this weekend. That one is probably for invited guests only, so we can't give out too much. But when is it out in cinemas? Where can people watch it? Just give us a bit more information as we start to wrap up.
Right. I mean, so Mothers of Chibok is going to be in cinemas from this Friday, 27th of February 2026. It's going to be in every film house cinema. In Nigeria and Ghana and other cinemas as well. So it'll be, if you just go online to mothersofchibok.com, you'll see the information there. But yeah, from this Friday, and on Saturday we're hosting the women themselves, special hosting, and like you said, it's for the specially invited guests only.
What about persons that want to actually help the Mothers of Chibok, outside of the actual going to watch it? If anybody wants to support, how can they reach you as well?
I think they should just go to mothersofchibok.com and you will find everything about the story, about the impact project, about the enterprise that they're building, about the work that we're doing with them. All the information is there to support the women, to collaborate with them. I like to use the word collaborate because here's the thing. They've been doing this before I got there. They will do it after I've left. So it's a privilege for us to be able to even partner with them to continue the work. And that's something that we can all look back and say, you know what, I was a part of the changing of that narrative.
All right, then. Thank you so much. I think it's fantastic work you're doing, Joel, and I appreciate you telling this story, and I appreciate you, Ma, for coming on board and lending your voice to such an impactful story.
Thank you.
Best decision ever, right? All right, then. Thank you so much.